So what we're here to talk about tonight is the general permit for concentrated animal feeding operations. And once again, this is a general permit not just for a specific area, but for the entire state of Arkansas. So please keep that in mind whenever we're making the comments, is that this doesn't just pertain to a specific area, but for the entire state. The permit was effective November the 1st of 2011. With all NPDES permits, they're only good for 5 years. So because of that, we have an expiration date of October 31st, 2016. And what we're here today is that we're proposing to renew that general permit and so that we have continued coverage. So to provide a little bit of information, this general permit, basically in accordance with 40 CFR 412, for those of you not familiar with that, 40 CFR 412, those are federal requirements. A lot of the conditions that are in, a lot of conditions and requirements that are contained in this general permit are straight from federal requirements. And those include land application of manure, litter, or processed wastewater and mortality management within the nutrient management plan. Also discharge from wastewater storage lagoons only when a precipitation event meets or exceeds a 25-year, 24-hour rainfall event. And it also includes operational requirements and construction requirements within the general permit. So facilities that are covered underneath this general permit may reapply for coverage under the renewed general permit or seek coverage under a separate individual permit. So with this particular permit, we only have, right now, we only have one person covered under, or one facility covered under this permit, general permit, and that's CNH Hog Farm. So upon renewal time, they may choose to seek coverage under this general permit, or they may apply for an individual. This permit renewal is for the general permit itself. The nutrient management plan of a specific facility with the coverage under this general permit is not open for comment at this time. So what we're talking about tonight are just the conditions and the requirements of the general permit for statewide coverage. Like I said, CNH is the only one that is covered underneath this, so if they submit an application to remain covered underneath this general permit, there will be another opportunity to supply comments at that time. So when we're talking tonight, what I'm going to try to do, and this may help keep the conversation brief, is that if you're asking questions about CNH, that's really not related to this general permit at this time. We're just wanting to focus in on the conditions and the requirements of this general permit. So some of the changes from the previous permit is now this general permit excludes any new CAFOs within the Buffalo River watershed. So anybody who applies, the moratorium right now that's in our regulation kind of stipulates that only small CAFOs are allowed to seek coverage or get a new permit. But with this general permit, we're just simply saying no. If you're a new facility and you're in the Buffalo River watershed, you're not eligible to obtain coverage underneath this CAFO general permit. The only way that small facilities can obtain coverage would be through an individual. Also is the submittal renewal of the notice of intent language on mortality management. These are some of the comments that we received from EPA, and they asked us to kind of beef up our language as far as mortality management is concerned. So a lot of the recommendations that they made, we incorporated into the general permit. In addition to the mortality management, we did provide clarification within the general permit on the construction requirements. So according to Arkansas statute, we are allowed to issue general permits. Underneath that statute, it says that it can be for construction and operation. Basically, based on the comments that we heard, we felt like we didn't make that clear, and so we've made changes to the general permit to make it clear that this general permit does include the construction aspects underneath this particular general permit. In addition, we also included the public notice requirements. Regulation 6 was updated to include additional public notice requirements. We are now adding what's in Regulation 6 into the general permit for consistency. Part of those is for new facilities or existing facilities, or that you may have to, you're notifying neighbors, you're having to post a sign, and then of course there's a public notice requirement when submitting an application. One of the other items that we've included is a requirement that with this general permit, when it's time to talk about continued coverage, that you needed to submit a notice of intent and a nutrient management plan 90 days after the issue date of the general permit. That doesn't pertain to anybody who's renewing at this time. That's 5 years in the future. This is probably one of the more confusing aspects of what we do with the general permits, because what we have to place in this general permit is to say how you need to reapply for the next one, and it has to be in this one. So when I talk about having to reapply 90 days after the issue date, that's not 6 months from now. This is actually when the permit is expiring. So if there's somebody that's covered underneath this general permit 5 years from now, if they want to be continued coverage underneath it, these are the requirements. They'll have to submit their renewal 90 days after the issuance date.